One of our favorite contributors at 100 Huntley Street is Kevin Scott, living in Atlanta, where we have the opportunity to be right now, thanks to Eastside Church in suburban Atlanta, a partner ministry of 100 Huntley Street. Our thanks to the church for giving us their square footage for a few days. Very, very kind of you. Kevin Scott lives here and works out of here, but travels literally all over the world. You are the president of the Addo Institute. You are the author of at least 2 books, and you've got more on the way. And I think you're soon going to be a married man. Is that still in the works?
That's true. That's
when
true.
Is the date?
As long as you'll have me.
When is the date?
October 22nd. And so being in the South, we have to plan around bye weekends for football when
That's
our
right.
team isn't playing.
That's
so
right, yeah.
we had to pick the one weekend.
Yeah, October 22nd.
Uh-huh.
So that's an away game or a bye week?
Bye weekend.
I got
You
it.
can be there.
Okay, I will. Man, it's good to see you. Let's talk about leadership and what's going on. You have the opportunity to be, one of the things, many things you do, is you're a contributor with Fox Business News, Fox News, CNBC, CNN, and they're asking you your view on how millennials basically are seeing things today, oftentimes business, consumers, moral values, etc. What is that like? To be, because how does it work? I think I know, but our audience I think would be intrigued because I don't know. My producer Melissa McEachern, she one time was on the road and was channel surfing, and suddenly Kevin was on Fox News, and she sent me a picture of you on screen. Whatever. How does it work that you're able to be on those? Because you developed an expertise.
You know, I think I've had the opportunity to have some great mentors. You being one of the key ones in that, and Ike Reichert and people like Zig Ziglar, who I looked up to.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, I'm younger, but I relate a lot with this generation that has so much wisdom and so much opportunity to give. I really play a kind of a middle role of bridging the gap between the older generation and millennials. And so I look more like a millennial, but I probably connect more with the people that are leading organizations, churches, and businesses.
For example, you'd be 30, but you act 50.
When you put it that way, I don't know how much I like it, but that's exactly.
That's kind of how they tagged me years ago. I was 33 going on 53.
It's exactly right. But what it does is it provides a unique opportunity to kind of speak between both generations, and being able to do that on topical areas, whether it's leadership or it's politics or it's faith. And I think it's important. This is the thing. A lot of people have these convictions, but we've got to be out there speaking about them in the public sphere and shaping the debate. And it's something that I think we're missing out on a lot as believers.
But Kevin, one of the things when I watch you on Fox Business News, for instance, that you're speaking about smartphones and the marketing and the receptivity, and you're talking to anchors who may be my age, but they have producers that will be your age, and they call you and say, we want you to have this, this, and this being said. What's cool is that you can be a person of faith there and make a great contribution. They'll ask you back, and yet it's not necessarily a faith expression time. Nothing like it. It's all business.
No, it's business. It's principles that work, whether it's in the faith community or the business community. And I think having those core beliefs and being able to translate a belief into a practical principle that works is something that seems like common sense, but it's not very common in the business world.
We're excited about the career path you're on, and you're going to be even better when you're married. It'll be even better. You've written 2 books, and we were just talking before the program. One has done really well in the United States, and another has just done really well overseas. So let's talk about the 2 books that you've written. The latest one was The
Leper's Lessons.
That's right.
And it's a biblical story. The first one was 8 Essential Exchanges, but The Leper's Lessons we've talked about on 100 Huntley before. It was co-authored with an Indonesian pastor who's remarkable, who's one of both of our friends, Paulus Wiratno. And it's compelling. The reason it's not done as well in the United States is because I'm not speaking in churches a lot. And what's really fascinating, though, is that church leaders in Indonesia and Australia are finding it basically takes an Old Testament story that many of them have read, and it helps them extrapolate it and put it into just really practical advice for today. And so,
but now we did an interview together, I think not long after I had arrived at Huntley Street, on 8 Essential Exchanges. And that apparently has done very well for you. in the United States and Canada, and you're busy doing corporate events now.
And that has been what's unbelievable to watch.
What's that all about, man?
Well, I think they're timeless truths that are every bit as applicable today as they have been for many years.
They're biblical echoes, but by no means are you going in with hardcore Bible, because you'd never get invited in if you did.
Certainly. And it's just saying, the toughest decisions we face are not between good things and bad things. Those are pretty easy for most of us. It's how do you give up something good in the pursuit of something better? And we're beginning to talk a lot about that. One of the exchanges is exchanging acceptance for accomplishment. That sounds like something that a high school student might face. But you know what? Pastors face that every day, and moms face it every day, and business executives, when they're trying to decide, how do I make a decision that's going to move our organization forward? And so they're looking at something that sounds maybe simplistic, but saying, no, there's something there that's important for what we're facing right now.
By the way, both of these books are available at our e-store, and we have them up there for you to see. Kevin, what right now would be some of the, we like to call them on Huntley, hot topics? What are some of the hot topics right now that are being discussed in business and ethics? And it's a political season in the United States. We just got out of a political season in Canada. What are the hot topics? What are people talking about there? What's trending?
Okay, got two that are really fun. The first one is about branding and leadership. So,
all right, talk to me.
Addo does this. So, branding is what you tell the world. It's how you message yourself.
Right.
Leadership is how you make it true. A lot of organizations are focusing on one or the other. A lot of presidential candidates, a lot of people, politicians, some are really good at branding. They're good at getting their message out, but then you say, could that person really lead? Others, they've got unbelievable leadership potential, but they struggle to get their message out. If you can't have both of those working in tandem, it's almost impossible to be effective. You know this as a guy who's led great organizations, but 100 Huntley being a media organization. And so how do you message it, and then how do you lead at the same time? It's a huge challenge. So that's one.
All right.
The second one, this one's really fun.
You love this stuff.
I love it. It gets me excited.
You just want to get out of your chair.
How do you lead when the majority is wrong? So how do you lead when the majority is wrong? You go back and you think about Caleb and Joshua in the Old Testament. There were 12 spies sent in,
That's right.
10 come back.
Majority report was?
Yep, don't go. We can't go. The giants are huge. We look like grasshoppers. And Caleb and Joshua were in the minority, but they were right. And they had to basically convince. And so we're talking about a lot of times, especially Christians. So believers look out at the landscape, and I think people get discouraged or depressed, and they say, it just looks like the culture is against us right now. When that is the case, how do you begin to lead in the other direction? And really, how do you know when the majority is wrong? And those kind of issues are really pervasive in the church. They're prevalent in corporate America. It's happening everywhere.
All right, so let's take it to the local church. Prevailing winds of society are redefining marriage, are actually redefining by law, constitutional law, redefining marriage, redefining what is clarity related to gender, all of this. And then there is the church that's trying to be salt and light. What's the challenge for the pastor now and for that local congregation? Because if you look at maybe the way the social trending is going and the opinions of the day are, we're in a minority position as Christ followers.
Completely. And pastors and church leaders have got to lead on this issue. I think
So if they're principled in their leadership, but then if they're not careful, and you're on a roll, and I think I just interrupted you, so I'm going to be quiet.
No, this is good.
But if they are in those leadership positions, there's one thing to state the positions that would have a biblical truth, but it's so much, and we believe this here at Huntley Street, it's the tone, the volume, the love that needs to be there to communicate that, we're going to love you regardless, but thus says the Lord, but we also got to love you. That to me is where we have to be in salt and light in this culture today.
Yep, and it takes both those. The first part is the leadership has to define reality. They have to define what is truth and what's not. How do you know when the majority is wrong? When it goes against God's word, that's one thing, but when doubt and fear are the lead motivators, you usually know that the majority is headed in the wrong direction. So the first job for that leader is to say what is right and wrong, The second thing is to acknowledge dissenting voices. And that's something that we don't always do well.
Talk about that a little bit.
When people disagree with us, what we normally do is we cut them off and we say, you're wrong.
Discredit them.
Yep, discredit them.
Boom, knock them down.
Instead, we've got to be able to say, all right, let's hear you. So we're going to speak truth. We're going to listen to dissenting voices. And then the third thing is we've got to choose to step up when others are sitting down. A lot of times, this is a challenge. That as leaders, especially Christian leaders, we want to stand up and talk about issues. We want to do the branding and messaging, but we don't want to do the leadership. We're not willing to get in and do the dirty work.
Because that's where confrontation is, and that's the arena where it's almost like the Good Samaritan helping the man who'd been beaten up on the road. He got his hands bloody and dirty, and the religious leaders wanted to go around that. But the Samaritan got in the arena.
They were headed to their next speaking engagement while this guy was getting... And I think when we get involved, when we help people, it gives us the opportunity and the permission to actually voice our opinion, to voice our convictions in those other areas. So it's got to be both. We've got to understand that we're fighting an uphill battle, but we've got to be willing to be engaged in this.
Speak very quickly, a couple minutes left. Talk about how, as a businessman, pastors who are watching this, local church leaders like the one we're in right now, how can we engage the business community, marketplace ministry? How can we do it? Because we have a message that every business leader needs.
Yep, and I think it's very simple. Pastors need to give business people what they're not getting in the business. A lot of pastors are saying, we're going to start doing a seminar on this, or we're going to do this, and some of them are great, but they can get that. They get it every day.
And they get it at an even higher level.
At a higher level. What a pastor needs to say, and this is what business people are asking, what does God say about my business? What does God say about what I should be doing? And when pastors will speak with that conviction about, Bible has a lot to say about business. When we take that into account, they're hungry for it. They're flocking to churches. And when they're finding leaders, that's what they're looking for. That's why they go to churches and hear people like you and our friend Ike Reichert and Andy Stanley, because they're looking for strong leaders who are going to tell them what God's saying about their business.
Let's talk about ways, after this is over, and ways that 100 Huntley Street and local churches that you and I know can strategically begin to impact businesses. And many are today. Marketplace ministry is probably better than it's ever been before. But I am fascinated as to how we can connect with the business community through our program as well as through local churches.
Great opportunity for influence, and I can't wait to figure out how we can do that.
So when are you next going to be on the big time television screen? Do we know?
You know, hopefully coming in the election season. You have to be careful what you say in election season, but there's a lot of opportunities to talk about branding and branding poorly. So hopefully really soon.
I imagine.
But I'm on the big time show right now, 100 Huntley Street. It is the show.
You are definitely on the oldest show, the longest running of shows, by God's grace. It's Kevin Scott. He's the head of the Addo Institute, and he's a contributor to 100 Huntley Street. And we're honored as well to have him to be in the company of his contributions of other media outlets like Fox News and CNBC and CNN. Kevin, we love and appreciate you. God bless you.
Thanks. So good to be here.
Talk to you next time.